there's so much going through my head, and there's so much to kind of unpack with everything we've gone through in this process. And um, I struggle a little bit with where to start. So first off, I just want to thank staff for all the work on this. It's been a long, arduous process, multi-year process, right? This isn't something that we just started a couple of months ago. This has been a long process to get to this point, so I want to thank you all for everything that you've done. The engagement, read the write-ups, the reports, everything. Um, you know, my colleagues have thoroughly dissected a lot of this, so I just want to go through some of it one more time because we've had a lot of questions, right? We've had the usual questions around density, parking, school capacity, sewer capacity, and a lot of those things have been addressed in items that we've put online that are readily available, transparent, and address the questions that were being asked. Um, I guess, what I've been frustrated with is kind of some of the rhetoric and how this has kind of been discussed within our community. I think about how I grew up. I grew up in a single family home, but when we bought it, it was basically split. We lived up top and we ended up renting the bottom of our home. At a later point, we ended up splitting it into 3 units. When we lost our home, I moved into a duplex. And the duplex was next to a single family home on both sides, another single family home across the street, a duplex next to that one. And I didn't see anything wrong with it. The way I grew up, I knew the need for housing even back then when I was young. And, the fact that we had different housing choices made a big difference. It made a difference in the fact that we were able to become homeowners, even if for, a few years. And I think about my time coming here to Alexandria as a young professional and living in Auburn Village. I was on Ashby Street, 2-story apartments, garden style, literally across the street on almost each side, except for probably the Commonwealth side, single family homes, or a couple of duplexes sprinkled in here and there. Great community, character, everything, livability. And then when I moved to the West End, I'm on Howard Street, and I think about the same thing, right? We have single-family homes. Right next to some of those single-family homes, Fox Chase. Right next to those single-family homes, my complex and a condo. So I get worried when there's rhetoric that says that, this is going to destroy the character. This is going to destroy our neighborhood. We don't have the capacity to deal with this. We've been planning for this. We do have the capacity. It is going to be okay if there's a duplex in someone's neighborhood. People want to talk about there's going to be too many people in the houses. These aren't high-density houses. And I know I'm talking just specifically about the single-family zone because, nobody really had issues with most of any of the other proposals. There's a few things here and there, but that's not really what people were talking about. And the other part that frustrated me was how a lot of these different things were getting convoluted. And I'm glad that we dissected the affordability piece, right? We really had to distinguish out what it is. And I appreciate everyone saying, they're not against affordable housing, but we had to set up some parameters because I think people were mixing things up together. But again, I go back to some of the rhetoric. We got an email saying, that there was an unholy alliance. Well, I can tell you that, I don't think any of us are having meetings with Satan's disciples, and, special interests. And the irony is that, what people are calling special interest on whether the proponents or the opponents, are literally just our residents, right? It's our residents that have organized. It's groups that represent our residents. Tenants and Workers United is a group that started here in Alexandria over 40 years ago from residents that wanted to stay here. You know, African Communities Together, a group that represents residents here in Alexandria. Grassroots Alexandria, another group started here in Alexandria. Residents. Voice, residents. Coalition for Livable Alexandria, residents, right? And I want to be clear because I was very disturbed by what the local paper said, unfortunately, that there's secret meetings. It's called a constituent meeting because we're meeting with our residents. You know, I've always said I will meet with anyone that asks for a meeting. You know who didn't ask me for a meeting? Coalition for Livable Alexandria. You know who did? Voice. YIMBY. Sure, I'll meet with you guys. But the same went for Coalition for Livable Alexandria and the other person that was against some of these proposals. I would meet with anyone. You are all our residents. You are all our constituents. And it is upon us to meet with all of you, to interact with all of you, to listen to all of you. And that's, you know, what we've been doing. Now, again, I want to reiterate this. Just because we might not agree on something doesn't mean that we're not listening. I think Councilman McPike made a lot of really good points, and also, you know, from what Councilmember Bagley brought up, all we had to do was notice this 3 times. You know, when people are calling us communists and fascists and that we're destroying the principles of democracy, sorry, that's just not what it is. If that was the case, I mean, we would have noticed it 3 times and voted on it and said, have a nice night. But we didn't want to do that. We went out of our way to have community forums, to do multilingual, multimedia community engagement. And sure, yeah, we might have failed on the one mailer just because this is a monumental enough decision that we're making. But we're going to be okay. I want to promise you all that we're going to be okay. I think about other big issues that we've gone through as a community. The waterfront, right? People said it was going to be the end of Alexandria if we did anything with the waterfront. And now it's an amazing place that brings even more tourists in. We talked about the halal chicken place, right? People were very upset about that. And I get it, sure. You know, a couple things have gone wrong and that business has fixed it. And that's what we want from a business. If there's an issue, we want them to fix it. And things are still working fine. I think about Seminary Road. You know, it was going to be congested and no end to anything. I know some people are going to scoff at this, but the road's running pretty well. And look, I live 2 blocks from there, and I'm on that road literally every single day, driving, not walking or biking, sorry. Driving every single day, and it's working well. So, you know, I almost forgot one, Ramsey Homes. There's a lot of controversy over that. Gonna bring in crime, gonna reduce my property price, my property values. None of that happened. Beautiful building, the Lineage, directly across from Charles Houston. Creating opportunities for folks because it's right next to the metro. I was at the pub at the seminary, and one of the bartenders there was talking about how fortunate they were to be able to live at the Lineage and how much it meant to them. So I was really happy that we had that fight and we showed that it's okay, that we could still welcome more people into our city, and that it wasn't going to, you know, destroy the character, destroy the livability. I promised myself when I ran the first time that I wouldn't run on a politics of fear. And again, to my frustration with the rhetoric and the fear-mongering and the misinformation, I want you all to know that you don't need to fear. We're not trying to, we don't have some ulterior motive, some secret agenda. Everybody up here on this dais cares about this city as much as everybody else in this room does and watching online that couldn't make it here. we're going to be okay as a community. There's a lot of other things too, but you know, I think I've talked long enough. But you know, for a lot of the reasons that have been discussed before, I like to align myself with the comments with my colleague Councilman McPike, and I will be supportive of this.